Greg, it's been a difficult time for the board recently with COVID and other issues. How has that impacted on the board?
You're right, it's been a difficult time over the last few months. Obviously with the onset of COVID, we were no longer able to meet as a board, so that's made it particularly difficult, particularly when you think of the different cultures, geographies, economies or whatever. It's immensely helpful for us to actually be able to get into the room and work through issues. So not being able to do that has been difficult. Coupled with Shashank obviously deciding at the end of his term that he wouldn't stay in a caretaker role and support the organisation forward. It created, unfortunately, a vacuum. He did a great job, Shashank, in terms of keeping the board together and keeping us directed. He was he was an excellent leader. So that left a vacuum which needed to be filled with leadership, and sitting in behind that, we couldn't get a process agreed to enable us to elect a new chair. So we unfortunately drifted for quite a few months. So it has been difficult without a doubt, but I think that the good thing now that we have got a process that's culminated in the election of a chair is that we can put a lot of those issues behind us. So I'd like to think that the group will come back together again, be reasonably united, certainly unified in an approach to the issues that we've got, and there are a number of them, so we need to. But having a chair to facilitate and perhaps lead the board through some of that will make a huge amount of difference. So I think that we'll see some of the perceived differences between directors, some of the possible dysfunction that we had, something in the past, and we'll get together and be able to act in a very unified and collaborative manner to address some issues, starting with strategy, following with world events, looking at maybe financial arrangements and whatnot. So the things that actually really matter to the members and to the ICC.
One of the issues that's been talked about a lot lately has been bilateral cricket versus world events. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think that there's been a lot of misrepresentation in media around the place, whether it's been a political positioning thing or whatever. I don't really mind, but the fact is that I am, of course, I'm a real advocate of bilateral cricket. It's the lifeblood of cricket, and all countries need to have both the opportunity to play bilateral cricket and the obligation to play and to host bilateral cricket. It's not just about commercial outcomes. It's much more fundamental than that. Bilateral cricket, countries playing each other on a regular basis and sustained competitive, relevant competition is what drives fan engagement. It's what drives the development pathways, high performance programs, and of course enables elite teams to be able to compete on the top stage. That's helping them in terms of their exposure and their experiences. So it's a vital part of cricket. The world events, the ICC runs world-class world events. They are excellent events, men's and women's. I mean, just look at what happened with the women's T20 recently in Australia, all the way through to the final, which was, no matter which way you look at it, a fantastic event. Men's ODI World Cup last year, amazing event. So they are pinnacle events, no doubt about that, and all members should be looking to compete and to support them. I would say though that they need to work in conjunction with each other. One can't sit in isolation to the other. So as I say, I'm very conscious of the delicate ecosystem that cricket sits in, world events and bilaterals, to ensure that we get optimal outcomes that benefit all members across both. And then in conjunction with that, you've got to look at the place of the domestic leagues. Some of those are massive events in themselves. IPL, Big Bash is two examples. So you've got that. You also need to look at the congestion in the calendar and the players' ability to actually be able to sustain themselves across an entire calendar year. And athletes' safety, health and welfare is of paramount importance as well. We can't expect those athletes to continue to perform day in, day out right through the year. So again, we've got to balance that in there, along with what the fans want. At the end of the day, this only works if in fact the fans want it. So players and fans, massive consideration around what we do. So I would like to see all of those things working together, as I said, to build optimum outcomes around, first and foremost, cricketing concerns. It's quite simple. So I'm I'm sick of hearing about the fact that I'm in favour of bilateral cricket in precedence to all or anything else, including world events. That's not the case. I just want to see them all work in perfect harmony, that's all.
And how does that philosophy align with the philosophy of the big three?
Yeah, there is no big three as far as I'm concerned. I don't subscribe to that at all. All cricket members are really important at the ICC. They should all be treated equally. I do accept, obviously, that some of the issues and concerns for individual countries will be different from other countries. I fully acknowledge that what some countries can contribute is going to be different from what other countries can. But ultimately, they're all members of the ICC, and they should all be treated accordingly. I do accept that some of those bigger countries can provide certain outcomes to the ICC along the lines of hosting, some of the revenue that might be able to be driven out of those countries. So, again, we need to take that into account and recognise that. But there is no big three, as I say. We're an organisation that looks after all of its members, and we take their issues and their concerns seriously and treat them all equally.
And as you say, it's taken a few months for this role to be determined. What will be your immediate priorities?
What I'd like to see happen, first of all, is for the ICC to complete a strategic planning process, which has been on the working board for probably the best part of 3 years now. So we need to bring that to a conclusion, so we've got a very clear roadmap as to what we as an organisation are doing, what our goals are, how we go about delivering to those goals. So I think the conclusion of the strategy, understanding what it is as an organisation that we're doing, how we're going to do it, how that benefits the members is massively important. The board needs to now pick up the slack and actually get this over the line. So that's probably the number one priority. That will then help drive things like a review of the governance arrangements. We need to have the right governance model to deliver against whatever strategic imperatives that we've agreed to. That will then help at the same time to bring about a calendar that delivers the sort of world events that we decide that we want and fit with whatever that strategy may look like. That ultimately in turn then will enable us to leverage the commercial outcomes that we need to, that will again help us to invest in and pay for whatever it is that we decide strategically that it is that we need to do. So that's where my focus will be. As we said at the beginning of the conversation, we need to get the board all pulling in the same direction, but I think that most of the issues that we've had will be behind us once we get up and running. And that will enable us to deal with those other issues, world events calendar and a new financial model, whatever that may look like.
You're the second independent elected ICC chair. What does independent in that sense mean to you?
The independent role was created back in 2016 with Shashank Manohar being the first of the independent chairs, very much a process that was driven by him. I think so that the chair of the board wasn't perceived or in fact had any real conflicts with a member board, so I think it was absolutely the right thing to do to create an independent role. It simply means that I am, as I say, perceived or otherwise, have no connection or alignment with any particular board. So from my point of view, I'm very much in the role to act in the interests entirely of the ICC and world cricket. So I don't have any issue around that. I'm a Kiwi, I'm a proud Kiwi, but I'm just delighted that my peers saw fit to put me into the chair role. So I come with a mandate, and I'll respect both the role of the chair and its independence.